Is that the motion be agreed to. Darian Fenton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, it's a privilege to take a call on the Road User Charges Bill. I was on the Select Committee with others, and I want to say in opening that Labor supports this bill, but we still have some major concerns over the shift from nominated weights to gross weights as the basis for charging road user charges, and the determination of rates set by regulation. And actually in the Select Committee, when it came to those particular clauses, Mr Speaker, we voted against those. However, there's lots of things that we do support about this bill, and we think the purpose is sound. We want to make sure that we continue the road user charges system by imposing charges on heavy vehicles and certain other vehicles for the use of the roads that are in proportion to the cost that those vehicles generate. We think it's good that we modernise and simplify the road user charges system, and we improve compliance with and recovery of road user charges. And the bill also establishes a framework for the electronic management of road user charges, which is welcome and welcomed by Labor, and it does give effect to the government's decisions arising from the recommendations of the independent review of the New Zealand road user charging system. And just to go back to where that came from, Mr Speaker, that came about prior to the last election, where there was a lot of concern and in fact action from truckies about a change that was being proposed, and in actual fact it was Annette King that set up the independent review, and this is the outcome of that. But as I said in Select Committee, we had two major concerns about the bill, and they're still not really resolved, and I think you will find, Mr Speaker, they're not resolved in the industry too. While some parts of the industry may have settled down on it, I think you will find in the next little while there are others that are concerned about a couple of proposals on the bill. While most in the industry welcome the upgrading of the road user charges regime, and it's very sensible and we need to do it, and also a move to electronic road user charges system. After all, we are in the 21st century. We should be using whatever technology is available to us. The move from nominated weights to gross weights for the setting of road user charges is still causing quite a lot of concern, and in fact the Minister said in his second reading speech just a moment ago that there are winners and losers. Well, I want to give an example from one submitter that talked about the difference that this would pose for his firm, and this is not a large firm. It's a firm actually in Avondale, I think known to the Honourable Toe Henry, and they made a submission, and felt they had a fair hearing, and so feeling quite disappointed actually that we're still in a situation where they're going to face quite substantial increases in charges. An additional cost actually for this firm of $137,000 a year. That's significant for a firm of that size, and in particular when we're still in a recession and this firm is trying to keep on its feet and keep doing its business. So there's a lot of concern around that, and as I say, I think those will be highlighted. I don't think this is settled down in the industry by any means, and although it's fair to acknowledge Mr Speaker, that there are differences in the industry. The Road Transport Forum are still harking back to the good old days when they think that we should have diesel, there should be road user charges based on diesel, or it should be a diesel charge. We all know, anybody that was on the Select Committee and listened to where the industry is going and what's happening overseas will know that any sort of road user charges based on or charged through diesel is actually not where the world is going. And New Zealand actually leads the world. Even we've had this road user charges for some time based on the the system that we have at the moment. But when you look at what's happening overseas, they're now starting to realise that actually funding road user charges based on diesel is not viable. Because as trucks get more and more efficient, as they move to different systems, maybe electric systems and others, obviously the income from road user charges is declining. So one of the things that was really interesting about the Select Committee process and meeting with some of the groups that are doing very, very innovative and leading edge work, actually, Mr. Speaker, in this industry, is understanding that we have a product in New Zealand with our road user charges system, and with the move to electronic hub odometers and charging through through electronic systems, we have a product that is now starting to be sold throughout the world. And we had a couple of examples from companies that came to see us. E-Road was one. I've been to see some others. There's another one called International Telematics. They are moving out into, well beyond New Zealand, well beyond Australia for that matter, into Europe, where Europe is now saying, actually New Zealand's got a good system. They've had it since 1974. We think this is a viable system. We want to look at it. We want to look at how New Zealand is moving in this direction and how they're using new technology to be able to charge that. So that's pretty interesting for the Select Committee, and I think we need to be encouraging that. And it was a bit disappointing actually on the Select Committee to have, I think, some of our more leading companies, I thought, treated fairly abysmally by the national members on the Select Committee, were very suspicious of their motives. Actually, I think that we need to be encouraging that sort of innovation and possible export revenue that we have that's developing in the industry. The other part of the bill that we're not happy about, and that is the industry's not happy about, is the process. By which the regulations that will set up the rates for the road user charges will be written up by the Ministry of Transport and then signed off by the Minister, thereby breaking the very important democratic principle that there should be no taxation without representation. And what we heard again and again is there's been a lack of consultation. There's been a lack of consultation with the industry, and one of the things the industry was asking for, Mr. Speaker, was that actually we write into the bill a requirement that before the regulations be set about the new rates for road user charges, there needed to be consultation. Now that was rejected by the government, which is very, very unfortunate. And I think it's a very, very interesting turn of events, actually, if we go back to history. As I started my contribution going back to 2008, when we had the truckies out in the road, protesting against the then National Labor government. They were protesting against the Labor government, and I'm happy to own up to that. But now the Honourable Tau Henare should go round and see his mate from A1 Movers and see where he's coming from and how happy he is with this government. And in fact, we may well see the truckies on the road before the next election, because they are not happy with this bill. Labor's on their side. Labor's sticking up for them. As I said, there are good things about this bill, Mr. Speaker, but those two things, the government has failed to listen to the industry on. I think it's fair enough. Why should there be increases to charges without proper representation? Why should there be taxation without representation? Setting increases through regulation. And you can scoff, Mr. Bennett, you can scoff, but I hope they come visiting you before the election. I'm sure that they will. And in fact, there's an awful lot more action coming your way. You may think that the Road Transport Forum, sorry, Mr. Speaker, that member may think that the Road Transport Forum is the be-all and end-all, but actually they're not, and they don't speak for the new industry, the modern part of the industry that is progressive, that wants to see this industry move forward, use new electronic systems, be responsible, not hark back to the 1970s and claim that they want a system based on diesel tax. The members may well find, as we move towards the next election, that there's quite a lot of opposition coming their way. When we have companies like Fonterra, which is a large company, our largest company in New Zealand, and Toll New Zealand, who are opposed to this bill, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, we have to be very, very worried that this government is not listening.
Or David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The road user charges